Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Credit Chat Live. I'm Rod Griffin, Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian, and hope you are all doing well and staying safe. I'm here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, to answer your questions about credit reporting and credit scoring and fraud and identity theft. Critically important at this time that we all stay in touch and stay connected. Ms. Katie 504, thanks for joining. If you have questions about your credit report, about credit scores, about fraud and ID theft, anything that's related to information services that I might be able to answer, please do ask. I know that if you have questions, others do too. And that's our goal, is to help share information that's specific to what you need to help every day, but also especially during this time with COVID-19. As I said, I hope all of you are doing well and staying safe. Please don't hesitate to ask. We are really active now and with my team and with Experian and trying to reach out. We are live 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday. I'm on Periscope Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. We're on Twitter on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, and where I am live on Facebook Live with my team and on Crowdcast on Fridays, 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern. So we want to make as many opportunities as possible for you to connect with us, to engage in dialogue, to have conversations, so that we can address the concerns and issues that you have and help work through this time. So really difficult, challenging times and very confusing. Lord Crimson, thanks for being here and being part of the Credit Chat. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll do my very best to answer and make sure that we answer your questions and help if we can. Good to see Christina Roman with me, who works with my team. Don't see the usual crowd coming in today, so that's kind of interesting. But make sure I signed in right, I hope. Rorix9, at Rorix9, thanks for joining and being part of Credit Chat. If it's your first time here, I'm here twice a week to answer your questions. It's about having an open conversation about your concerns. Hazy, Ms. ZD4, there's one of our regulars. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And help the new crew get started. There's a lot of new faces. I always love that and love to see new people joining and want to make sure everybody feels comfortable, that you know that you can ask questions. I want to provide objective information, non-judgmental. We have all been there. We've all been through a lot of problems. So be sure to ask. Don't be afraid to ask any questions you have. Ms. Katie 504, how can I become a legit credit repair agent? How can I stop bills by third-party collection agencies? So a couple of things. Talk to an organization like nfcc.org, and there's my dog. I figure Amazon will ring the bell at some point today. And probably in the next 30 minutes or so. That's what it will happen. Never fails. But talk to and research those the organizations like that are nonprofit credit counseling services. It gives you an idea of what it takes to do that, what kinds of services they provide. And there are others as well that provide good information. I'm trying to remember a couple. I see there's somebody knocked on the door, of all things. Knew that was going to happen today somehow. Welcome to real life during COVID-19. And so I apologize for that. I have two little dogs. They're half Chihuahua, half Shih Tzu. Adorable, love them. Very loud for the size that they are. I'm not sure how they get to be that loud, but it is what it is. So it's real life. And you know, if you all have pets and have dogs and cats, you know that they're like part of the family. So they're like my little ones, in addition to my grandkids and everybody else. So, and my kids and all the whole crowd. So sorry for that, but bear with us. I think that will be the only knock. There's not supposed to be much coming. So we'll see what happens. But Wild Empress 11, thanks for joining. Right in time for my dogs to bark. Again, if you're looking at becoming a credit counselor, Ms. Katie 504, excellent. There is an organization as well that does financial training and counseling. They're called AFCPE, the Association for Financial Counseling. And I always mess it up, and Rebecca will will let me know about it, their CEO, but great organization. So look up AFCPE. It provides great information. They provide great training and certifications to be a financial counselor, and good way to develop credibility and knowledge that you'll need. So good organization to work with as well, to help give you the information, the background to do that. Again, and then understanding the laws, regulations, to be a credit counselor. In terms of collection agencies, you can ask them to stop calling you. You can stop them to contact them to stop contacting you, and they have to do that, especially if it's in a workplace. Not an expert on the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, but there are protections in place. Tell them to stop calling you, and they have to, as I understand it. So, check that out. FINRA, also a great organization to work with, and learn more about the requirements, laws, regulations, knowledge that you need as well. So thanks for that tip. And as a credit counselor, FINRA doesn't really offer certifications to be a credit counselor, but they have great information. The AFCPE, so AFCPE.org, I believe it's .org, great place to go to learn about becoming a financial counselor, and certifications in that role. And they can tell you a lot. Rebecca Wiggins is their CEO, and know her well. She actually is on our consumer council. So, important to work with them, and organizations like that can give you training and certification validation. I mean, and that's what really gives you credibility. So on the right track there. Zai, thanks for joining. I know I'm not saying that right, but apologize. Woody 900, thanks for joining. I'm in the process of disputing Dr. DFR _ AZ. I'm in the process of disputing collections. When I did, my scores jumped. What gives? So jumped up, I presume. If you have a collection account and it's reported as paid, your scores will, in many cases, go up right away. The newest scores exclude paid collections from the calculation, or will treat them as less impactful. So if you have disputed collections is not yours, or that they should be updated to paid, if they were updated to show that they're paid, it could have immediately had an effect on scores. That's my guess. So that would be the best guess I have. We paid 3, fantastic. The more we can reduce our debts, that's the second most important factor in scores. We talk about this all the time too. Paying on time, your payment history is most important with every score out there. Your utilization rate on your credit cards is the second most important factor. If you can pay down those balances on your credit cards, you're going to see your scores improve. And in part because the utilization rate goes down, but also when you're paying down the debts and you don't have so much debt, you're better able to pay the other bills on time, and that's going to help. So it all builds on each step you can take. So fantastic. Congratulations. Shiva Yu, thanks for joining. And Hazy, what's the U.S. addiction to debt? I don't know that's an addiction to debt. It's in some cases it's an addiction to credit, and what we say and what I always tell people is credit's a financial tool if you use it well. Debt's the financial problem. If you use credit in the U.S., you can have access to lower cost financial services. You can obtain goods and services, for example, houses or cars that you otherwise couldn't afford with cash and at low interest rates and low fees. You can take advantage of incentives that credit card companies have, like cash back or discounts on purchases to save you money, if you're paying them in full each month. So you're not paying interest, you're not taking on debt. So I always try to stress that you can separate credit and debt. They're not the same thing. They're very closely related, but credit's a financial tool, debt's a financial problem. And, I encourage people to think about credit like businesses do. They will invest in credit for things like capital investments and equipment and that sort of thing, borrow because they can then invest their cash in investments and earnings that are greater than the interest rates that they have to pay for the credit. So they use their money to make money. They use the bank's money to maintain their business and manage it. If you think about credit that way, it's a financial tool. If you're using credit to buy things you can't afford to pay for, probably going to get into trouble, especially if you don't have a plan to repay them. You're not budgeting and doing all those things that you need to do. So, always think about credit's a financial tool. We encourage people to use credit well. Debt's a financial problem. I encourage you to stay away from and minimize debt as much as you can if you can't eliminate it completely. Medical collection accounts should be removed. LB Ocean 11. So good news on that front. Medical collections are now being treated very differently in credit scoring systems. And as a result, they're having less effect on scores. If you pay a medical collection, it's completely excluded from the score calculation. So if you've had a medical collection and it's a legitimate collection that you owe, pay that off and you'll see it no longer affect your credit scores. With the newest scores, like FICO 8, which is the most widely score used today, Vantage score as well. So good news on that front. We also, at the credit reporting companies, hold medical collections for 6 months before we put them on the report. So we delay that so that we can ensure that it's not the result of a billing error or an insurance dispute, something like that, that it's to make sure that it's a legitimate collection that should appear on the report. So we're handling that differently. And medical collections in general are having less effect on scores even when they're on the report and active. So we do treat them differently today. And that's changed over the last maybe 4 or 5 years and continues to. But the way that they're looked at, the way that they're treated. If it's a debt you owe, it still affects your ability to repay other kinds of debts. So it is reflected in credit histories. But the impact it has is less, and they can be considered differently by your lenders as well. What's the best way to get business credit ratings? Okay, get your business credit report. If you go to Experian.com, we're actually providing businesses free business credit reports. They're free Experian business credit reports. They will include a business credit score. Business scores are different as are business credit reports. Your personal credit report as a consumer, as an individual, does not include a credit score. We don't include credit scores. We don't calculate the scores on the Consumer Credit Bureau side. Those are why we have companies like FICO and Vantage Score. They create the algorithms. They own those. And when a lender gets your credit report, those are applied. So those are the companies who do scoring. We do reports on the consumer side. On the business side, there is a business credit report. If you search Experian Business Credit Reports, you can go to Experian.com. You can find business reports as well. You can get a free copy of your business credit report along with the business credit score from Experian. The business credit score has a scale from 0 to 100, which is also different than a consumer score. They look at similar things as you would expect for a business as they do for consumers. For example, are you paying your vendors on time? Are you paying your debts on time as a business? But the scores will look different. That you can get your free business credit report now through Experian. So that's a good way to do that and to see where your business credit score is sitting. And that's different than somebody like Moody's, for example, or Dun and Bradstreet. They do similar things with credit reports and scores and ratings for businesses. But you can get your Experian report and score for free. Are you going to post late pays during the pandemic? So LB Ocean 11, what is 111? Left out of one. What we're doing is in conjunction with the CARES Act. So if you are working with a lender and they have a payment accommodation, which is usually something like a forbearance or a deferment, when that forbearance is implemented, the account will not change in terms of delinquency or currency until after that forbearance lifts. So if you have an account, it's current, no late payments, and you enter into a forbearance, it will continue to remain current throughout that forbearance period. When that forbearance period ends, it will still be current and you'll start from that point. So essentially we're stopping you right at that point where the forbearance started. If you have, say, a 30-day late payment, so you have an account, it's 30 days late, when you enter into the forbearance, that account will remain 30 days late. So it won't become current, but it will show that it is 30 days late for the length of that forbearance period. When the forbearance period ends or that payment accommodation ends, it will show that the account's 30 days late. It will not become more delinquent. So we are effectively making accounts frozen when lenders say our customer has a payment accommodation. That account will be reported with that accommodation and it will remain at that payment status until the future. So and payments will start up where they left off. So you won't become more delinquent. Hope that makes sense. Essentially, we're stopping the clock when that account's reported. Now, it's important to understand that 80% of the population is still employed still getting paid. They are still able to make their payments on time. So what we're trying to do is make sure that people who are not affected by COVID-19 and their deployment isn't, still have a traditional credit history, still able to take advantage of opportunities that may be out there based on their credit history. But for those people who are affected by COVID-19, lost their jobs, have had income reduction, taking steps to protect them too, so that they can come out of this where they started and we can pick up again and move on. So trying to make sure that we're helping everybody through the process and helping those who are still fortunate to be conducting day-to-day business and fairly normally, or as relatively normally as that can be, continue to do the same things. And for those who are affected by COVID-19, we're trying to help make sure that their credit history is protected. So that's what's happening. So what percentage of people using credit end up in debt? So if you have credit, you probably have or had some debt. And the key is managing that debt well. Your credit history shows your debt obligations. And so if you have a credit card, you have a balance, you're going to show will show a debt. If you have a mortgage or an auto loan, that will show debt. But ideally, you'll see that balance decreasing. And so if you have a credit report, probably have some debt. The thing to understand is that the vast majority of credit reports, the last number I saw was something in excess of 80% have no late payments in them at all. So the majority of people are doing well and continue to. We're seeing some increase in delinquency now related to, I suspect, COVID-19 and the very sudden impact on people's lives. They're working through that as we go on. So, watching to see what's going to happen there. RORX 9, pay in full or settle directly with the creditor on an account they closed that's 4 months late. So if you have an account and it's closed, you should work with the new account owner if there is one, meaning if that account's closed, that lender has said, I'm not getting paid anymore. If it's reported closed on the credit report, so it would say closed was, in this case, 120 days late, 4 times 3, if I do my math right, 120 days late. So you may see a collection account. If there's a collection account on your credit report, that's who you should pay and work with, not that original creditor anymore. If you pay that collection off, it would be updated to show paid. It would no longer affect the newest scores, so you could see an instant improvement. If you settle an account, it means that you repaid the debt for less than originally agreed. And that's how it will be reported in your credit report. And that will have a negative effect on your credit scores. It's going to hurt your credit scores. So ideally, if you can pay the account in full, that's the best thing to do. If you're in a situation where settlement makes sense, and it can in some cases, if there's no other options, it could make sense to settle an account so that you're out from under that debt and can get back on your feet. It might be the right thing to do. Talk to a good credit counselor. We're talking about how you become a credit counselor or a financial counselor. Visit nfcc.org, National Foundation for Credit Counseling, nfcc.org. And you can find a good nonprofit credit counselor in your area who can look at your financial situation and advise you on what might be the best course of action for you. They can also work with your lenders if that's determined the best course, and work on what they call a debt management plan, which might be debt settlement, might be other opportunities. So seek professional guidance with someone who's objective, not going to be judgmental. They're going to look at your overall credit history, your overall financial situation, be able to advise you exactly what might be best for you. So that's what I would recommend. How do I build business credit? Ms. Katie 504. Another fantastic question. The first thing you have to do is have a business. That sounds sort of trite, but it's true. You have to have a business that is legally registered. Generally is something like an LLC, a limited liability corporation, or other legal business filing, business structure. Once you have that, if you have a business credit account, that account would be reported to Experian. Your business credit would be established, and you start to build credit for your business just like you would as a consumer. Make sure you are paying those vendor relationships on time. Make sure you're paying your debts on time as the business, and you'll build that business credit history. Fairly straightforward. If you visit Experian's website, Experian.com, and just search business credit, I think there's a link at the top that says business credit. I'm trying to remember exactly how it looks. We've changed our website several times, and I'm trying to remember where the link is now, but it will say Experian Business Credit, something to that effect. You'll be able to find it and get more information. Should you pay newer collections first? My oldest medical is 3 years old. The youngest is 3 months. What I would say is this: the older a negative piece of information, in this case a collection account, is, the less effect they tend to have on credit scores. So that's one consideration. The other would be, if an older collection perhaps is a smaller amount and you can pay it off, that might be a better strategy, because then there would be less effect on your scores, and you would have one that's paid, and then focus on the newer ones or the larger debts. Just depends on your approach. I always tell people, do what works for you. The math always says work on the largest and the newest first, but life doesn't always agree with the math, and financial situations don't always agree with the math. So do what works for you, just so that you stay motivated, you continue to make progress, and look at your situation. What will work for you the best, personally and emotionally, as well as financially? I think that's what's really important. It's in collections. It's going to have a negative effect on your scores. So pick the ones and start where it's going to help you keep on track. I think that's the best advice I can give. Again, talking to a financial counselor could be helpful. So back to nfcc.org, someone who can sit down with you and look at your finances overall. That's really important. The U.S. is that obsessed with debt that they're about to go into negative interest rates, which means they start consuming the saver's savings. Read some things about that. Very disturbing. We've seen that in Europe already. It's not a credit reporting issue, not an area where I claim to have any expertise. But you're right. Negative savings rates mean that your savings is basically a deposit in your bank account, and you're not going to draw any interest. However, it can also mean that you're paying much lower interest rates on major purchases like mortgages or auto loans, that sort of thing, which means it can save you money and help you achieve other financial goals. So there's a trade-off, and it depends on the situation. I think it also depends on the macroeconomic realities that we're in right now and what will happen. Not my call. Fortunately, a lot smarter people, a lot more educated people on this than I am. Not going to make a judgment there. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. Hazy, like a junkie looking for another hit. For some people with credit cards and other things, you're right. I won't challenge that at all. It's a habit that can be very damaging. And what I tell people is, credit isn't for everybody. If you know that you can't resist a temptation, don't do it. Don't have a credit card. For others, having a card or two can help them achieve their financial goals. I think we have to recognize that and make sure that we're doing what's right for each of us. But learning to manage credit well and not take on debt that you cannot pay can be a very powerful financial tool. We want to help people do that. Most of us cannot live and achieve our financial goals without using credit well. Doesn't mean taking on bad debt, but it does mean achieving our financial goals. A lot of people go to college. I did the student loan option. That's the option I had. Made a huge difference in my life. I hear people saying student loans are bad. I don't think so. I think too many student loans or too much student loan debt is bad. But using credit and student loans to gain an education that is proven over and over, for example, to help a person earn on average with a bachelor's degree more than $1 million over the course of their career, as compared to a high school graduate. When you have an average student loan debt of $30,000 to $35,000, that pays for itself over time. So if you manage it well, it can be a great investment in debt, an investment in credit. That's what I want to see people do. I don't want to see people go out and buy stuff and have all of this debt and they have no idea what they got for it and can't repay it and get into financial problems. That's why we're here. And that's why we have this conversation, is to really talk about how to make good decisions and how to use your credit history as a financial tool instead of it being a mystery. So I'm not afraid of these questions. I like these questions. I think it's a conversation we need to have. So Ms. ED4, thank you for defending me and being rude. But I think it's a conversation. Everybody has an opinion. If that opinion is based on something we disagree with, we should have that conversation. If you don't think credit's a good thing, you don't have to have it. That's your choice. You don't have to use it. If you are unable to manage it well, maybe you shouldn't until you're able to make more sound decisions and manage the emotional component. If you are managing well, by all means, you should use credit well. Do you have to pay Dun and Bradstreet for good standing for your business credit? I can't speak to what Dun and Bradstreet has. You don't have to pay anything to Experian. We automatically update that information, report it, and get your report. There's a fee to get your report generally. Not now. It's free. So we'll give you a free credit report. Again, go to Experian.com. You can find out how to do that and get that free business credit report if we have one for your business. And make sure you look at it, know what's there. But Dun and Bradstreet has their own business rules and processes, and I don't believe there's any fee for them to create a business credit report and to maintain it. To get their report, maybe, I don't know. I haven't worked with them, and most of the time I work with and I'm talking about consumer reports. So business credit, I work with a more limited fashion. So check with Dun and Bradstreet. I guess is the way you go to their website. I'm sure they'll be able to tell you. Cisco Harrison, got a charge off on your credit account, then paid it, and it looked like it went away. Is that possible? I guess it's possible. If you have a charge off, you pay the collector or the account. But generally, no. They would, once it's charged off, it's reported as charged off, and there wouldn't be any new updates. If it's charged off, usually it goes to collections, and then you would pay the collection agency. If you paid the lender with the charged off account, they would probably take your payment, but it wouldn't update. And the collection agency would say, "Hey, I own the debt now. I need that payment too." And then you'd have to pay them as well. So always pay the owner, the legal owner of that debt, which is, if it's gone to collections, the collection agency, not the original creditor. So be aware of that. Hey Z, I'd say you're not being rude. You're asking great questions, and you have an opinion. We have ours. I wouldn't say you're stating fact. I'd say you're stating opinion, and I'm sharing my opinion, and that's perfectly reasonable. We need to do more of that and have a conversation. And if we agree to disagree, we agree to disagree. Doesn't mean we don't like each other, don't get along, don't have a conversation. I think we too often, and this is a non-credit opinion, but I think we too often refuse to talk to each other and listen to one another and consider other views. I can understand where those perspectives come from. I have family members who are not able to manage credit, and they shouldn't have it. I have family members, and I hope I include myself in this, that use credit well, and it helps improve our lives. I have that conversation with my family members about how to manage it well, and hope that they're able to and use it as a financial tool. It's a tool in the toolbox. And I think we use everything that's available. So most people don't have the cash on hand to pay for it, hence taking on debt. And I think that's fair, DFRAZ. But, don't everybody attack a hazy either. He's certainly entitled, or she, I'm not sure if it's he or she, entitled to their opinion and their perspectives. And we can share them. So, I think that's true. Most people can't afford to buy a house with cash, for example. And so credit's there to work for them. So they're counters to all of those arguments. And I think we have to consider everybody. Best of luck with improving quality of life. You learn debt isn't for the best. Nah, not all debt. So again, we can agree to disagree. But good for you if you can pay cash for everything. Absolutely true. And we share that perspective. People should live within their means. Agree. And with a little financial education, something school sadly doesn't teach us. And now we're exactly on the same page. I agree with you completely. You shouldn't use credit to live beyond your means. Credit's a financial tool that can help you improve your financial situation in some cases. So again, back to that mortgage, buying a house, you plan for that payment each month. You know what it's going to be. It's a resource that's there to help you. You should not use, and when we talk about credit, we're usually talking about revolving credit, short-term credit, where you go out and buy a big screen TV and a computer and a bunch of stuff and have a credit card debt you can't pay because you want it and you otherwise couldn't pay for it. Absolutely shouldn't do that. Your credit card, if you have a plan for how you're going to use it, why you're going to use it, can absolutely be the right thing to do. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a budget, you're using a credit card as a supplement to your income, that's a bad idea and not a good thing to do. When it comes to schools and not teaching personal finance, we are in 100% agreement. Experian was a founding member of the Jumpstart Coalition for Financial literacy. So visit jumpstart.org and you'll learn more there. Going on 25 years ago. So, and our perspective is we want to work with nonprofits, with government agencies, with academia to encourage financial education in our schools because we believe it's a hugely important thing to do for our young people. We want them to not learn from their mistakes like a lot of us did as adults. We think understanding personal finance, having basic concepts will help young adults and when they learn as children, make better decisions as adults and have a better financial future. So we agree completely on that. And if you visit checkyourschool.org, it's a Jumpstart Coalition initiative. You can find out if your school is including financial education in their curriculum and about how you can participate in that conversation and encourage them to do so. So checkyourschool.org and jumpstart.org. Check those things out because we agree completely on that. We need to have financial education in our school systems to help our children be better prepared when they become adults to make good financial decisions. No question. So see, we all have common perspectives. Disagree on some things. Don't have to agree on everything. So Sophia, what did I miss? I'm sorry. How many are in front of me? Let me back up and make sure I get to your question. I am so sorry. But that was a fun conversation, I got to say. Let me see if I can find, where did your question go? I'm afraid I missed it. So if I did, please repost the question because I can't find it, but want to make sure I answer it if I can. Really, love the fact that I'm behind so far. And you have all of the great questions. I need to have shorter answers, I suppose, but what's the fun in that, right? Whoop, I turned the screen around. Didn't want to do that either. So I'm sorry. Sophia, please repost. I'll watch. What is your question? Because I missed the question. Please post. I'm watching right now. Let me scroll down and see where we are. What is the best to do if I paid off most of my mortgage of my houses? Sorry that you don't want to join the conversation. I didn't get to your question. I apologize. What's the best thing to do if you paid off most of your mortgage of your houses? If you have multiple houses, you paid them off, they should be updated to say paid. And then would be shown as paid in your credit report, and it would have a positive effect on your credit report, assuming that they were paid on time. Fairly straightforward and pretty clear. So yeah, I mean, a lot of great questions. I'll scroll back and see if I can catch up. So I probably missed a few. And try to get to everybody. And when there's a lot of questions, it's hard to get to everybody. I apologize for that, but that's a fantastic problem to have from my perspective. And I didn't see it first. I'm sorry. How are repair agents able to remove all kinds of stuff? They aren't. So when they're charging you a fortune up front and claiming that they're going to remove information, they're breaking the law, federal law. They can't take payment up front. Know your rights under under CRO, the Credit Repair Organizations Act. It says they cannot take money up front. They have to provide a contract. They cannot claim to remove accurate information before the time frame specified in the law. They can't ask you to change your identity or falsify information. What they do is dispute information over and over and over, the same thing, knowing that the lender has 30 days to respond. And at some point, they will not make it back in 30 days. What they do not tell you is that the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the law says when that happens, the lender can say, we missed it, but it's accurate. It needs to come back on the report. And Experian then is obligated to send you a notice saying the lender told us to put it back, so it's going back on the report so it doesn't come off. That's the scam, quite frankly. And if you're spending, and I've seen credit repair firms charge more than $1,000 per account to dispute information, just like you can do for free. So there's no reason to pay them. There are good credit counselors. There are great companies and organizations out there that will help provide education and help you learn how to manage credit well and assist you in various processes, but they will never claim to remove accurate information from your report. They can't do that. So keep that in mind. That was kind of, so I asked it preciously and waited for 20 minutes. Is it smart to refinance a house during COVID regardless of credit? Depends on whether you can, and that's going to be a bit of a challenge. I know that mortgage lenders and others are beginning to tighten their lending standards and requirements. If your credit's in good shape, it might be a great time to refinance, because we're going to see interest rates going down, I suspect, and it could be a great opportunity. That's why we want to make sure that people who are able to continue to make those payments and sort of operate as closely to normal as possible have those reports there to work for them, and possibly. What's a good way to save cash? And a little at a time. So, same thing. Saving is a crucial part of credit. If you have good savings habits, you're going to have good credit. I can tell you, and I've told people, when my wife and I got married more than 20 years ago, the first thing we did was put $1,000 aside, and we still do to this day, in our checking account, and then zeroed out what we had a check register then, but pretend it's not there. It took us 6 months to get that first $1,000 saved, and we just saved as much as we could until it was there, and then we continued to save, and that habit. So, little at a time. Better to put it in a bank account than a sock. But sock is certainly a liquid asset. You could get to it easily, but if you have savings, you could draw a little bit of interest. Great. Get here early for your questions. He answers them thoroughly, so it might take a while. Yeah, that's a problem with me, but I'd rather have a thorough answer than a quick question, and a quick answer that doesn't really get to the issue. Never had a credit card. Is that good or bad for your credit? So, Kitty Guava, I think I got to everybody. If not, I apologize. I'll be back next Tuesday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. And the answer is, from a credit reporting and scoring standpoint, it's good to have a credit card. One, maybe two. You don't have to have very many. Just one or two will do. Make a small purchase every month. Pay the balance in full right away, and you will show activity in that account. You'll show that you manage it well. That's going to help improve your credit scores a bit. So, good to have a credit card. Don't need many from a credit scoring standpoint. So thank you so much for all the great questions. Hope you join me next Tuesday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. Join me tomorrow on Facebook Live and on crowdcast.io. If you join us, we're working to build a community on Crowdcast, and want to help connect with people as much as possible. So check us out, 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern on Facebook Live and on crowdcast.io. Check Experian News on Facebook, or visit crowdcast.io, and you can find us at #CreditChatLive. To learn more about our conversations on Periscope and on Facebook Live and on Crowdcast and on Twitter, visit ex.pn/CreditChatLive and ex.pn/CreditChat. Hope to see you all again very soon. Please stay well. Please stay safe. Join me tomorrow on Facebook Live. Talk to you all again very soon. Take care.